He met her in a moment that felt like fate. Not the loud kind, but the quiet one. The kind that doesn't announce itself with fireworks. Only a subtle pull, like gravity remembering its purpose. Her eyes carried that impossible familiarity. The kind that makes a man forget where he ends and she begins. At first, she seemed like everything he had ever prayed for. The calm to his chaos, the mirror to his depth, the home he didn't know he had been missing. But as time went on, something inside him began to unravel. The same woman who made him feel infinite began to make him feel small. Her warmth turned to distance. Her honesty became silence. Her eyes, once oceans, became mirrors. And he didn't like what he saw looking back. He told himself she changed. He told himself it was her fault. But deep down, he knew the truth. He had never really seen her. He had only seen the parts of himself he wasn't ready to face. Carl Jung once said that we don't fall in love with others. We fall into our own unconscious through them. And in that sense, love is never just about another person. It's the meeting point between what we show the world and what we hide from it. The woman he thought would complete him was only ever showing him what was missing inside. So why do men fall for the wrong woman? Why does the heart chase what the soul is trying to outgrow? The answer isn't simple. It's buried deep in the psyche, in the space where love and illusion blend, where desire becomes a mirror. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand not just why it happens, but why it has to. If you explore the hidden architecture of love, the quiet mechanics of the soul, and the places where psychology meets the sacred. Subscribe. Every week, we uncover what your shadow is trying to tell you. Now, breathe in. Look again at the reflection, and step closer. Carl Jung believed that every man carries a hidden image of woman within him. He called it the anima, the soul image, the inner feminine that shapes how a man perceives love, beauty, and connection. When he meets a woman in the outer world who resembles that image, something powerful happens. It's not simply attraction, it's recognition, a deep, unconscious remembering. But here lies the danger. Because what he falls in love with isn't truly her. It's his own reflection in her light. The anima projects itself onto the woman, coloring her with every unmet longing, every forgotten tenderness, every piece of himself he has exiled into shadow. In her, he doesn't just see a person, he sees the promise of wholeness. That's why the wrong woman feels like destiny. She mirrors his hidden world back to him with such precision that he mistakes it for fate. Her smile feels familiar because it carries the echo of his mother's warmth. Her silence feels safe because it hides the same wounds he never healed. It's not about who she is. It's about what she awakens. In Jung's language, falling in love can be a kind of possession. The anima seizes the heart, convincing the man that this is salvation, that she is the key to his completeness. But love born from projection isn't really love. It's a collision between inner and outer worlds, a desperate attempt to reconcile what's been divided inside. This is why Jung said that relationships are never purely between two people. They're between four: the man, the woman, and their inner counterparts, his anima and her animus, both invisible, both shaping every word, every silence, every heartbreak. So when he falls for the wrong woman, it's not bad luck. It's a summons from the psyche itself. The wrong woman becomes the right mirror, the catalyst that forces him to confront his illusions and see who he really is beneath them. Because sometimes the soul teaches through loss, and love is the classroom. In the beginning, love always feels divine. The body trembles like it's touching something sacred. Every word, every glance, every silence between them feels like it carries meaning beyond language. When he looked at her, he didn't just see beauty. He saw a promise, a doorway to something higher, maybe even salvation. The mind tries to call it chemistry, but it's more like hypnosis. Her presence becomes a spell, familiar, dangerous, comforting, all at once. She seems to understand him without words. She listens in a way no one else ever has. And for a while, he confuses that attention with connection. He believes she sees him. But she doesn't. Not really. She's only seeing the version of him that he presents. And he's only seeing the version of her that he's created in his mind. This is the illusion of the anima, the inner feminine projected outward. It feels like love because it fills the emptiness. It feels like destiny because it touches the deepest wound. And for a man who has spent his life searching for meaning, that feeling can be intoxicating. She becomes the embodiment of everything he's been chasing: freedom, understanding, belonging. He doesn't realize that what he's chasing isn't her. It's the reflection of his own unlived life. So he gives. He opens. He exposes parts of himself that were never safe to show. He believes that if he loves her deeply enough, she'll love him back into wholeness. But slowly, the light begins to flicker. She pulls away. The warmth fades. The laughter quiets. And he feels it. That familiar ache of rejection rising in his chest. He tries harder. He fights for her attention. He starts analyzing every word, every silence, trying to decode what went wrong. What he doesn't see is that nothing went wrong. The relationship is doing exactly what it was meant to do. It's revealing the fracture inside him. Her withdrawal reawakens the old wound, the one he thought love would heal, the same wound that made him seek her out in the first place. Jung wrote that the anima doesn't just inspire, she deceives, she tests, she forces confrontation with the unconscious. The wrong woman often carries the right lesson. She mirrors the shadow, the need to control, the fear of abandonment, the hunger for validation. She becomes the vessel through which the psyche delivers its hardest truth. You cannot be saved by what you're unwilling to face. So he blames her. He calls her cold, unpredictable, heartless. He tells himself she used him, that she never cared. But deep beneath the story, another truth whispers. She was never his to lose. She was the reflection his soul used to wake him up. Every argument, every tear, every sleepless night was a message. Not from her, but from the depths of himself. Love built on projection always collapses. It has to, because the illusion can only hold as long as he refuses to see. And when the mirror finally cracks, he's left with the painful clarity of truth. She was never the answer. She was the mirror. And that's where the fall begins. The confusion, the grief, the rage. The mind scrambles to make sense of what the heart refuses to release. He replays memories like scenes from a movie, looking for clues, wondering how something that felt so real could vanish so easily. He doesn't yet understand that this disappearance, this loss, is sacred. It's the psyche pulling him back inward, away from fantasy, toward integration. What feels like heartbreak is really initiation. The death of the illusion is the birth of awareness. But in this stage, he can't see that yet. He's still reaching for her shadow, mistaking it for light. He still believes that if he could just understand her, he could undo the pain. He doesn't realize that what he's truly trying to understand is himself. The descent always begins in love and ends in recognition. But before recognition comes, the breaking. When the illusion finally breaks, it doesn't shatter like glass. It dissolves like mist. Slowly, painfully, and without permission. What once felt like love now feels like confusion. The same moments that used to bring joy now sting with memory. He looks at her face and no longer recognizes the woman he thought he knew. It's as if he's been living in a dream. and waking up hurts. Carl Jung described this moment as the collapse of projection. The psyche, having poured its hidden desires into another person, begins to take them back. The soul reclaims what it once tried to outsource, and that reclamation feels like loss, but it's actually a return. This is the moment where many men mistake awakening for failure. They think they loved wrong. They think they trusted the wrong person. But the truth is far deeper. The wrong woman often plays the most sacred role. She carries the image of everything a man has disowned in himself. When she leaves, the image returns home. The energy he once invested in her becomes available again, but not without pain, because now he must face what she represented. If she was his peace, he must learn to find peace within. If she was his inspiration, he must learn to create from his own soul. If she was his reflection, he must finally look in the mirror without turning away. The wrong woman was never wrong. She was simply the symbol of what he wasn't yet ready to integrate. Jung said that what you deny inwardly will appear outwardly as fate. And so she arrived, the woman who stirred the deepest ache, the one who made him feel alive and then abandoned. She wasn't his punishment. She was his teacher, because only through her loss could he see how much of his identity had been built on fantasy. At first, he resists. He clings to the memories, to the hope that maybe she'll come back, that maybe this story still has a happy ending. But the psyche doesn't bargain. It dismantles. Every attempt to return to her feels hollow because she's no longer there, not the way he imagined her. What he's really longing for is the part of himself that disappeared when she did. This is where most men reach the edge of despair. They look at the emptiness and think something has gone terribly wrong. But Jung saw it differently. He called it the nigredo, the blackening, the stage in alchemy where everything that once held shape melts into darkness, not as punishment, but as purification. It's the death of the false, the burning away of everything that was built on illusion. And in that blackness, the ego screams. It feels like dying because, in a sense, it is. The persona that believed love was salvation is dissolving. What's left is silence, a haunting stillness where nothing feels certain anymore. He starts to see the truth piece by piece, how his need to be seen was really a fear of being unseen, how his desire to be loved was really the longing to love himself, how the woman he lost was never meant to stay, because her purpose was to awaken what was dormant within him. This is the sacred cruelty of the psyche. It gives love not to comfort, but to confront. It breaks the heart not to destroy, but to open. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there's any reaction, both are transformed. And transformation always demands sacrifice, the death of certainty, the death of who he thought he was, the death of the story he built around love. Only then can something authentic emerge from the ashes. He sits in the darkness, mourning what's gone. But in that grief, something ancient begins to move. It's faint, like the first breath after drowning. A quiet knowing that maybe this isn't the end. Maybe it's the beginning of seeing clearly for the first time. The illusion has collapsed. But what remains is truth. At first, the silence feels unbearable. He wakes up in the mornings and reaches for a ghost. His hands remember her long after she's gone. The mind replays her voice, her laughter, her touch. And yet, beneath the ache, something else begins to form. A strange clarity like the air after a storm. This is where real love begins. Not the kind that seeks to possess, but the kind that seeks to understand. The emptiness that once felt like death starts to reveal its purpose. It's space, space for the soul to expand, space for truth to breathe. space for him to meet himself, not as a role, not as a lover, not as someone trying to be enough, but simply as he is. In the collapse of projection, a man begins to see the woman not as a goddess or villain, but as human, flawed, beautiful, temporary. And by extension, he begins to see himself that way too. The illusion of perfection dies, and in its place, compassion takes root. He no longer needs to be worshipped or saved. He no longer needs to chase or be chased. He begins to sense that love isn't something you find, it's something you remember. Jung called this process individuation, the slow, often painful integration of the unconscious into awareness. It's the journey from illusion to wholeness. When the anima is withdrawn as projection, she becomes internalized, not as fantasy, but as a living force within the psyche. The feminine within him no longer appears as an external savior. She becomes the voice of intuition, creativity, and empathy inside his own mind. He begins to notice subtle changes, the way silence no longer feels like loneliness, the way solitude starts to feel sacred. He begins to write again, but not to impress. He paints, not to prove. He moves through the world with a gentleness that wasn't there before. The fire of obsession cools into the steady warmth of understanding. What he once sought in her, he's learning to give himself. It's a quiet transformation, the kind no one else can see. From the outside, it might look like he's become distant, detached. But inside, he's shedding identities like old skin. The achiever, the protector, the one who always had to know. He's learning that strength doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender, from the willingness to let life shape him instead of forcing it into shape. And slowly, a deeper truth emerges. The wrong woman was never a mistake. She was the initiator, the one who cracked open the walls of his psyche so that light could finally enter. Without her, he might have never questioned his reflection. Without her, he might have stayed asleep. Now, when he thinks of her, it's no longer with bitterness. It's gratitude. Not the easy kind, but the earned kind. The kind that understands how pain can be sacred when it strips you down to what's real. He begins to see that love wasn't meant to fix him. It was meant to reveal him. And maybe, for the first time, he realizes that what he truly wanted wasn't a woman at all. It was peace. Peace with himself. Peace with his story. Peace with the way things ended. This is what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." It's not an achievement. It's a remembering, a return, a homecoming to the soul. From the ashes of heartbreak rises something unbreakable. Not the old self patched together, but a self reborn, forged by awareness, tempered by truth. The same love that once blinded him now becomes his light. The same pain that once broke him now becomes his teacher. And the same woman who once haunted his dreams now stands only as a whisper of what once was. A catalyst, not a curse. Integration doesn't erase the past. It sanctifies it. Every mistake, every heartbreak, every tear becomes part of the mosaic. And when he steps back and looks at it all, he realizes it was never chaos. It was choreography. Every fall was a direction. Every loss was an initiation. And somewhere deep inside, where silence meets understanding, he finally says it. Thank you. Not to her, but to the part of himself that finally had the courage to see. He once thought awakening would feel like rising, like light flooding in, like understanding finally setting him free. But what he's learned is that real awakening feels more like dissolving. It doesn't arrive with a trumpet or a sunrise. It arrives in quiet. In the moment he stops fighting. In the moment he stops blaming. In the moment he realizes she didn't ruin him. She revealed him. He sits in the stillness, and for the first time, he doesn't try to fill it. He doesn't scroll, or run, or call, or plan. He just breathes. There's no grand epiphany, no cinematic flash of light, only the gentle hum of being. And in that space, he finally understands. The pain wasn't punishment. The loss wasn't failure. The emptiness wasn't a void. It was the soil of rebirth. Everything he thought was taken from him had only been returned to where it belonged. The love, the longing, the devotion. All of it was energy he had projected outward, hoping someone else would complete the circuit. But now, he sees it was never meant to leave him. It was meant to teach him where he'd abandoned himself. He remembers her face, not as an idol or enemy, but as a symbol. She was the flame that showed him his darkness, the mirror that reflected his shadow, the dream that had to end so he could wake up. And as he sees this, something in him softens. The resentment dissolves. The story loses its edges. What remains is gratitude, not for what happened, but for what it opened. This is the sacred paradox of love. It breaks you open so you can finally hold yourself. It gives you what you think you want so it can show you what you actually need. It mirrors your highest potential through another person, only to take them away when you start confusing their reflection with your own soul. And in that loss, life whispers, "Come back." Not back to them, back to you. He realizes that every relationship is a ceremony of mirrors. Every attraction, every heartbreak, every desire is the soul's way of trying to see itself more clearly. The wrong woman, the right woman, the unavailable woman. They are all chapters in the same book, the book of becoming. He once thought love was about finding someone who made him feel whole. Now he sees that love is about remembering that he already was. The woman who broke him was never his ending. She was the beginning of his evolution, the first spark of his rebirth, the invitation to stop seeking salvation outside and start listening inside. Jung said that the meeting with oneself is the essence of the individuation process, and it is often the most painful. Because when a man truly meets himself, there's no one left to blame. The story collapses, the projection fades, and what's left is the terrifying freedom of responsibility, the realization that no one is coming to save you, and no one has to. He walks outside. The air feels different. The colors seem softer. The world hasn't changed, but his vision has. Every person he passes, every sound, every breath feels like a continuation of the same stillness he once tried to escape. The woman he loved isn't gone. She's become part of the world around him. Part of him. That's the secret no one tells you about heartbreak. It doesn't end when the person leaves. It ends when you stop leaving yourself. And in that moment, he finally feels it. The peace he thought she took with her. The love he thought was lost. It was never gone. It was waiting for him to return. The ache softens. The anger fades. The tears that once burned now feel cleansing. He doesn't need closure anymore because he understands. There was never a door. Only mirrors. Only lessons. Only the slow, sacred process of remembering who he's always been. He exhales. A long, steady breath that feels like release, like forgiveness, like home.